Sometimes the best stories in golf aren't found on tour. You'll find them at the back of the range. And here's your host, Ben Adelberg.
And thanks again for hanging out here at the Back of the Range Golf Podcast. I'm your host, Ben Adelberg, and this is episode 4. That big voice you just heard right there, yeah, that's Mitch Phillips. Check him out at mpvoice.com. He makes us look really good each and every week, and we cannot thank him enough for his support of the podcast. Before we get into this week's guest, we are sending a huge thank you and congratulations down to Santiago, Chile. Our international correspondent, Ashley Burke, was on site at the Latin America Amateur Championship earlier this week. She herself is an accomplished amateur, just recently wrapping up her collegiate career at the University of South Florida. She'll be a future guest here on the podcast. You'll hear her again soon. But right now, she is down in Chile celebrating with some of the local guys that just completed the tournament. Claudio Correa posted a top 25. Last year's winner, Toto Gana, had an impressive top 10. And now we get to the number one ranked amateur in the world, Joaquin Niemann. He shot a final round 63. Yeah, and along with a second round 64, that gave him a 5-shot victory. He is the Latin America Amateur Champion. And that got him a place in the 2018 Masters. Yes, he is going to Augusta in April. So Joaquin, congrats, bud. Thank you to Ashley. She provided some great video and photos throughout the entire final round, and I have posted them on our Instagram account. Yes, we are on Instagram at the Back of the Range. You can get all sorts of stuff there. We're posting all of the time. Also, thank you so much for spreading the word about this podcast. It is growing faster than I could have ever possibly imagined. In fact, the luck of the Irish has found its way to the podcast. So to all our listeners now in Ireland, thank you very much, and I hope you enjoy it. So, for this episode, since we just got done talking about some young college players, it seemed like a perfect time to reflect back on some of my college days. Luckily for me, I was able to play a couple of years of college golf at St. Thomas University in Miami, Florida. And today we're going to talk about one of the truly crazy characters on that team. This week's guest is Willie Spicer. So no matter what level, it seems like every college golf team has that one guy that could just flat out play no matter the circumstances. You remember that guy, right? He hit a few parties, stayed up all night, showed up on the first tee at 7 a.m., and he'd shoot even par like it was nothing. Sounds pretty legendary, right? Yeah, that was not me. No, that guy on our team was Willie Spicer. Willie is a Wayne, New Jersey high school sports star in football and golf, and he parlayed that into success into a college scholarship at Seton Hall University. After a couple of years, he found his way down to Miami at St. Thomas, which is where we met. And I lost touch with him over the years, but we've reconnected and he had some good stories to share and thought he'd be a perfect guest for something light and fun for the podcast. So we're going to ask Willie about his relationship with the game of golf and how it's changed since his time in college. Apparently, he's now a vice president in the insurance game. I have no idea how that happened, but we're also going to discuss what it's like to play in some of the most over-the-top member guest tournaments in the most exclusive country clubs in the Northeast. And if we're lucky, he'll explain what a transfusion is and why everyone needs to try one. So, Willie, welcome to the Back of the Range.
Hey, Ben. Thanks for having me. Really an honor to be on this podcast. I never thought my life would end up on the back of the range.
Oh, it's going to get much worse from here. Don't worry, man. So Spice, now, you know, we have, like I said, we've known each other for nearly 20 years, and our route to meeting and playing in college golf could not possibly be more different. And we're going to get into a lot of things about your beginning in golf and how we ended up at St. Thomas down in Miami, and then where you've gone after college golf and where I've gone. But we actually were supposed to do this podcast episode a few days ago, and you actually had to call and cancel, and your excuse was what?
Yeah, I had the honor and privilege of going to the President's Cup. Really cool place. Obviously, Liberty National with the Statue of Liberty and the skyline in the background is just a phenomenal place. And having the opportunity to go there and see the greats of the game was pretty awesome. They had the Barclays there, and I went to that. But they changed up the course a little bit. So the front nine had to be like 4,000 yards. They shuffled a couple holes around. And the one consistent thing there was the cocktails. The 19th hole was the exact same.
So again, now you're saying that it was different for the Barclays than it was for the President's Cup. Now, obviously people that were watching the first hole, that you got water dead left, and actually I think Justin Thomas sniped one left into the water, and it looks like a tough driving hole. So you're saying that it's a lot different for the President's Cup. They did a lot of work there to make it different than what it was just a regular tour event?
Well, when they had the regular tour event, that was still the first hole, but a lot of the holes on the back nine, they rerouted. The 14th hole along the Hudson, probably the greatest hole there, was formerly the 18th hole. That first tee definitely, with those big stands and everything, got a lot more narrow than it was for the PGA Tour, for the Barclays. Actually, did you see some guys? I know Patrick Reed, a bunch of guys hit it left of the creek on one. So yeah, that creek comes. Most balls, we were actually down by the bottom there. Most balls are landing probably within 4 or 5 paces of the creek.
Okay. And what was just the general, I personally have never been to a team event. I've been to a handful of PGA Tour events, but I've never been to a President's or Ryder Cup or Solheim. What are the crowds like?
So, interestingly, this was the first time I think that they've ever had 3 presidents as close as they really were, like within a foot of each other. So security was beyond tight. Knowing that, we, had our driver take us down quite early to make sure we could get in. But they were shuttling you over to Liberty Park Science Center. Then you have to take a bus over, and they drop you off basically out on the back nine, and you have to walk your way in and make your way through the village, which that's where most of the guys in the Wild Outfits hang out.
Okay.
Which is awesome. They have food trucks, cornhole, giant TVs outside. It's like a whole nother party there. I guess that's like the appetizer. You get primed up in there, and then you walk out, and you get to walk about 1.5 miles, 2 miles to get to the first tee. And it's wild when they're introducing the presidents. They had bagpipers. They had some stuff for some fallen heroes prior to. So it's really, pretty cool. It was like a stadium. I've been out to the Waste Management out in Arizona, so I know that stadium feel, but this was even more personal and close. It's not like a regular tour event. It is loud.
Okay, because personally, I've always kind of shied away from going to and I will go to a Ryder Cup, I will go to a President's Cup, but I've kind of shied away from it because I'm thinking, how close can you get? Are you going to get that same spectator experience? So you're saying that you're even closer and you're getting that good feel, even though it's not just a typical tour event.
You are. I had luck of the draw with going on Thursday because they were only playing one round. Tickets were quite expensive, so people probably were going to elect to go on the weekend or Friday when they were playing twice. So there wasn't, there was a lot of people, but there wasn't an inability to get close to the players. If you knew the course and were able to map it out, you might jump ahead 2 or 3 holes. We actually followed Ricky for the first couple. Then we jumped out to the captain's pavilion out behind 9, and we're able to, get ahead of them. And then you watch, 3 groups go through 9, 10, and 11, and then you jump ahead to 14. So you got to find your spot, and then you're not quick to run. You're going to watch a few groups go through. But their pace of play is really slow in this event.
Yeah.
It's a pure grind. And it's pretty cool because it reminds me of college golf, because when we're on 10, a little 144-yard par 3, and you got Stricker writing down what the players are hitting as they're hitting it in the bunker short, or, a couple guys flew the green. He's walking back to the tee telling the next guy what they hit.
Well, it sounds like it was an amazing experience being at the President's Cup, and it's really actually nice to see that they have righted the ship, and I cannot wait to see what Paris is going to be like for the Ryder Cup. So let's kind of get a little back on topic here. You're starting the game now. Clearly, by your listening to your accent, perhaps you can tell our audience what it was like to grow up in southern Arkansas. What was that like?
Well, at a real young age, my parents moved to New Jersey.
Shock.
And yeah, that's where I got the accent. No, so grew up in northern New Jersey. Actually, when I was born in '76, my father took his first head professional job at a club called Tammy Brook Country Club in Cresco, New Jersey. So from an early on age, with him being in the business, I spent many a Saturday or holiday afternoon up at a country club, probably locked in the office in the pro shop, so I couldn't get in trouble or do anything to get him fired.
Yeah. Now we have a very distinctly different upbringing in the game of golf. You're son of a head golf professional. I kind of was knocking around at munis and kind of, getting, clubs secondhand and picking ranges to try and get golf balls and kind of trying to figure out a way to get onto golf courses. Do you feel that you had a distinct advantage growing up around a country club and having a father as a head professional? Maybe you could speak to a little bit about that, because I guess everyone assumes that, hey, my dad's a pro, I'm going to be great.
I get that. And yes, there's parts that may seem that way because you're around golf all the time, but it's a little different when it's work. Fortunately for me, my dad in 1984 built a driving range. So I was kind of, in my high school years, a public course player just like yourself.
Okay.
But my dad had a driving range, so, we'd go back in the woods, and the first 180 yards was water, and then it was tree line. So we'd go back in the woods and learn how to curve balls, low draws, high cuts around the trees to get them back in place so that, the golf cart could pick up the balls. So, yeah, I learned that. But, again, similar to you, I didn't have, necessarily a country club to play at. When, my dad got back in the business, I was already, or back in the green grass business, I was already in college at that point. So, I didn't necessarily play that much as a kid, but I did, work at a golf course. So I hit tons of golf balls.
Okay.
I mean, I didn't play very many rounds before high school golf. On the flip side, my dad pretty much taught lessons all day. And when we were not, picking up golf balls, we were on the tee line hitting golf balls. So, at a young age, I was probably 8, 9 years old. And, he would have me perform in front of his customers and watch my kid hit the ball across the lake. But I had no problem, being a 9, 10-year-old kid, hitting the ball over the lake in front of, 40, 50 of his, customers. So it was cool to be put on the spotlight, but, it didn't really mean much because, I was just a kid in gym shorts and a T-shirt hitting it far over the water.
So obviously I know your family pretty well, and obviously your father being a head professional. You're the oldest of 3 boys. Peter, the middle brother, he played some golf. He's not really in the game anymore. But tell me about your youngest brother, AJ.
He got the golf bug early. He was a lot more advanced because of us. He became a really good, dominant junior player. And then he actually followed in my father's footsteps and became a PGA professional. He has his own golf school up in Paramus, New Jersey. Interesting fact about him, he's gotten to the point a year and a half ago that he was bored with golf and decided he would take the game up lefty.
I know about this, and I've seen videos of it. It's unreal. He's got a 2-year goal to break 80, and he's come very close. He's had 81. I think he's at an 82 or 83. He definitely has the ability to. His short game's so much better. He just, it takes a lot of repetition to get the arm strength to hit it far enough. Sure.
So, he struggles out of the rough or trying to hit some long irons, but he has a newfound love for the game lefty.
Now, you mentioned that you really didn't play a whole lot before high school. So it sounds like golf was not your primary sport.
Definitely not.
Okay, so
golf was probably the 4th sport for me. Football was very big. pretty much all my brothers and I were all state athletes in football, and then golf was kind of just there.
Okay.
My dad kind of instituted with us that, it wasn't mandatory we play, but we better learn the game because we're going to need it later in life. But, as a 12-year-old kid, the last thing I want to do is go hit golf balls. It was, let's go play some baseball, let's go play basketball or football, anything other than golf. It wasn't necessarily the cool thing back then.
Right.
We would go to the range and there was batting cages. We'd take batting practice and we go, chip some balls or ride the picker or, go in the back and make a golf club. I think by the time I was 11, 12 years old, I had enough time in the epoxy from making clubs or had the ability to regrip a club probably by the time I was 10, 11 years old.
So you played a lot of sports as a kid. What was it like when you really did get committed to golf?
Once we got committed to playing high school golf at DePaul High School, we ended up having a spectacular team. I happened to be the captain playing number 1. My buddy Anthony Scalba, who went to Palm Beach Community, then played on the Nike Tour for a little bit, was the 2-man. My brother Pete was probably the 3-man. Another good athlete, Jeffrey Heaney, who ended up playing at Bergen Community College, was our 4-man. Sean Thomas played at Rutgers, and Sean Stasinski, I don't know what ended up happening with him, but we had basically 5 scholarship athletes on our golf team. We went to the States, and we played at, I think it was Farmstead. I'm going to say I shot 76, a little down in the dumps, a typical 16-year-old kid.
Sure.
And my score didn't count. So in high school, we played 4 of the 5 scores. So we had really, really a solid golf team, won the state section. So we had a really, really solid golf team. Come my junior year, I start playing really good. Won the junior masters, which was down at Manasquan River. My game started to get pretty good, and started looking at colleges. And then I played with a couple guys who was going to Seton Hall. I was a pretty good student. I was definitely not an honor roll student. But when I learned about, at least up here in New Jersey, the value proposition of the alumni at Seton Hall and all the school had to offer, up in the Northeast, I was, pretty excited by it. Went there on one of my visits and really kind of fell in love with the school. The basketball team was awesome. Obviously, they were a Final Four team. And, it was tough. But then once I got in there, this was maxing out, going, to Seton Hall.
So you're kind of shooting. You're kind of shooting for the moon there, and that was like your.
I was.
Okay.
I was. Golf wise, the team was decent, but was not great by any means. We came in, and it ended up being 1 senior and 4 of us freshmen playing. And we ended up really, really being like the first run of scholarship athletes there. And since then, the team's been unbelievable. But it was definitely a game changer going there. I got my start. Coach Alan Small, one of the best players up in the Met section, was my coach. Tons of fun. I mean, we played every day, different games, fun times with our friends, and building, what was our weakness on the golf course. Seton Hall was in the Big East. I think I had a 4th or 5th place finish at St. John's up at Bethpage Black.
Tied for 4th, but we will give that to you. Yes, sir.
Was it tied for 4th? What did you, 151 maybe?
That's kind of what I see. Yeah, we'll give you a T4 for 151. Pretty good.
So picture playing Bethpage Black in October. I think back then I had a beryllium ping 1-iron, which compressed the ball better than a driver. But it was, a game changer, that event, because I specifically remember getting my first top 5 and saying, wow, I played unbelievable. But then you go and look at, it was Golf Week or what are the golf magazines, and you start seeing these schools in Florida, and these kids are shooting like 68, 67. I was like, wow, different game. But as we got better at Seton Hall, we started playing in some better events and realized the golf courses up in the Northeast are as tough as they get. And your window of good golf when you're at school is really, really short. So you're playing difficult golf courses under really, really difficult conditions. So it kind of got in my mind that I may want to pursue going to Florida. And at the time, I was playing pretty good golf, a little bit too good because I decided school wasn't that important. I wasn't really doing my best at Seton Hall.
You know, they like you to go to classes periodically. At least I remember that. They're really big on that stuff.
I didn't realize. I saw that syllabus, and I'm like, okay, it sounds like I have to be here 3 days, midterm, final, and first day to get the syllabus.
Mm-hmm. No,
you know, I thought I had it conquered.
Okay.
And didn't work out so well. So I guess after my second year, I went back to school, redshirted. My third year, did not play. And we had made our way down to, I guess it's in Delray Beach, the Atlantis Golf Club down by you. We were playing in a father-son tournament. And the Floyds play, Jesper Parnevik, who else? Bob Murphy, Dana Quigley, Bernie Longer, a ton of tour players.
Sure.
So we are playing in that. And there was a gentleman there named David Pizzino playing with his father. So we were just shooting the shit, talking about life, whatever. He was from Bergen County, New Jersey, and said, you know, to my dad, what are your boys up to? My dad kind of alluded to, they're playing golf, but they're not really doing so great academically. And so he said, well, you know, would you let me have a chance at him? And he said, well, it's up to them. Because at that point, I think he was kind of done with us not going to school.
Sure.
So Coach Pizzino gave me actually an opportunity to come down to South Florida and go to St. Thomas.
And that kind of takes us to when we first met. So we, you know, now that we actually are talking about it, we actually had pretty similar routes to get to St. Thomas. I had gone to the University of Kansas for a couple of years. I didn't play golf there, but I didn't do great academically. I came back and kind of worked some odd jobs, and my meeting with Coach Pizzino was pretty similar. So you go from playing really tough golf courses in the Northeast, and then you come down to South Florida, and you're in Miami, Florida, and obviously St. Thomas is not Big East. It was at that time NAIA, I believe, Florida Sun Conference. Yep. And, you know, there we are. And basically we show up the same year, which was 1997. And what were your first impressions just coming from that atmosphere to St. Thomas?
It was kind of funny because I had never seen the school. I just knew I needed an opportunity.
Sure.
So Coach gave me the opportunity, and I said yes, accepted a scholarship. I didn't even know anything other than it was in Miami. And I just kind of thought of Miami being South Beach and Doral.
Sure.
Didn't realize really.
Yeah, St. Thomas University is not in Miami. So St. Thomas University is in. And hey, by the way, we're both very proud graduates of St. Thomas University. Very proud. And,
listen, you know how many times that street is on the show Cops?
Damn! All right, I'm going to edit that out. No, I won't. But anyway, so yeah, so it's in Miami Gardens. Do you remember the three-legged dog that ran out by the entrance all the time?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So we'll just leave it at that. We're going to move on because hey, go to stu.edu. Go check it out. It's a great school. So anyway, you're getting in, you're getting your feet wet, and we're playing. You know, we're running into all these different guys on the team, and we all really meshed. I think we meshed all pretty well, to be honest with you. I think it was
amazing how it was every walk of life.
Oh yeah.
Actually, none of us, I don't think, were country club kids. We all just kind of had a little knack for the game and kind of just fell together, and that's where we ended up.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. It was a very and I was just, for me, just being on a college golf team, I never dreamed I would have that opportunity. So I was just thrilled to be there. And so one of I mean, we have a lot of stories we can talk about the college days, but so I think the first tournament that we had, and I actually had to look this up because there's really, I mean, I really hope you get into this story because so the first tournament, I looked this up. It was our home tournament, and it's at the Golf Club of Miami, and this is back in 1997. And I think we were able to put the A team and the B team out. You were on the A team. I think I was probably playing.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
So I'm playing like the 6 or 7 spot. So I'm like the 2-man on the B team, and I'm just basically like just trying not to embarrass myself. And I think I played actually pretty well on the first day. It was a Saturday. I think I shot 1 over, 2 over, something like that. I was thrilled. And if I remember right, I looked it up. I think you shot like 71 or something like that. And I think we were leading the tournament or tied with Brevard Community College, but we were right up there. And as I said, this is Saturday, October 25th, 1997. We're leading. Yeah. And another thing happened on Saturday, October 25th. That was Game 6.
The Cleveland Indians were in town.
Yes, they were. So this is Game 6 of the World Series. Florida Marlins, they're Miami Marlins now, but Florida Marlins against the Indians. And I
think it was El Duque even pitching. I think that might.
It's very possible, but why don't we just kind of? Well, actually, no, that would have been Levon Hernandez. El Duque, yeah, that was his older brother.
You're right.
But
You're
before,
right.
But before this turns into a baseball podcast, which is not my intention, let's go ahead and get into. You shoot your 71. We're leading the tournament. Coach Bazzino's just fired up. What happened that night, Willie?
Pretty psyched. Pretty happy.
Okay.
Rich Merton, who I believe shot 69 day 1.
I think you're right.
His father had 2 tickets for Game 6 of the World Series, kind of behind the but no, I was actually behind home plate in the mezzanine section. And Rich said, "What do you think?" I said, "Well, I have my parents' car. I'll drive. You got the tickets. Let's do this." So, we head in. And this was a first for me because I had never sat in that mezzanine section. You can order chicken wings and beers from your seat.
Okay.
You used to always have to go up and kind of pick them up, and you can only buy 1 or 2 at a time. They check your ID. Yeah, we probably didn't have legitimate IDs. We had IDs.
That's details. Details. That's fine. That's details.
Sometimes you don't get away with it. Well, when you're at the seat, they're not checking your ID. So the beers were flowing, and it was a heck of a game from what I remember. Unfortunately, we did not get to see the last pitch. For some odd reason, they asked us to leave.
Now, that sounds kind of rough. Why would they do such a thing, Will?
Probably mis-ID'd us.
Okay.
So, needless to say, it was a quick exit for us. We could not find the car, which was not a good thing. So, we had to get picked up, and it was late. I think we went out after. And I remember being brought up to the driving range of Country Club in Miami and laying my golf towel down and taking a little nap before we had to tee it up.
Yeah.
I think we were working on maybe a half hour, 45 minutes sleep.
Yeah. I remember this very well because I was still in full on grind mode trying to throw numbers up that just resembled a decent golf score. And I knew that you went to the game with Merton, and Bazzino was coming up to me like, "Where's Will? Where's Will?" I'm like, I don't know, Coach. I don't know. And I just remember you and Will showing up, or I'm sorry, you and Merton showing up very, very late. And I distinctly remember you looked awful.
I wasn't caring what I was going to shoot. I was thinking how embarrassing it's going to be when I throw up all day. That was really the thought process.
Oh,
actually,
man.
somehow I don't know. You know what it was. I don't know what the number was. I think I did all right though.
You shot 73 on no sleep.
Not bad.
Yeah.
I got to go back to that ritual.
Yeah, like you have to go back to it. I think you're already there. So, all right. So that was literally, that was that was something I'd never seen, because I was very much just, like I said, just a total grinder, just trying to make things happen. And I just was amazed when that happened. So, we had a lot of good experiences at St. Thomas, a lot of good tournaments, a lot of Friday morning practice sessions out in that back field that they
that was great.
Oh gosh. So we would
It was a little baseball field. I guess, didn't the Orioles practice there or something? They always told us the grass was sacred.
The Miami Dolphins actually used St. Thomas as training camp, but Coach Mazzino had basically mowed out this back field and threw some stakes up, and that was our range. But gosh, I just remember we would have classes. Well, a lot of us had classes, Spice. So we had classes Monday through Thursday. And then as just a special brand of torture, because Coach knew that we would go out Thursday nights and take it pretty deep.
Yeah, it was early Friday,
you would
right?
set those damn Friday morning 8 a.m. practice sessions. And those are just unfair.
I do remember, though, we were trying to, someone got hit. We used to try to hit each other, and they would go out to pick up the ball.
I do remember that. Yeah, I think
I think it was Tweety. Maybe Dion or James. Someone hit Tweety.
Yeah, so Tweety, just so our guest, Tweety is a nice little a nickname we gave to John Scheidel, one of our, I would say, player manager. Yeah. That's an honorable title, player manager, or Dion Gonzalez, personal attaché. So he did a lot for the team. But yeah, I do remember those. So we got, St. Thomas got to, I believe, about 10th or 11th ranked nationally in NAIA. We made a trip to nationals.
Twice. Actually, we made the cup both years.
That's right. So really a respectable tenure at St. Thomas playing golf. Did you have any aspirations of potentially trying to play pro, or where did things take you right after college?
Initially, as soon as I was done, I had already accepted a job up at Essex Fells Country Club as, I guess, the third assistant. It was someone, just in the shop, maybe worked with the juniors. So I'd spent the summer there and immediately went back down to Florida because it was not for me up here.
Sure.
In the winter. And I think that's where I played the most. A lot of those 1 and 2 day South Florida events. And then I came back up and decided I wanted more free time and wanted to build a business similar to my dad. So I started teaching at the Golden Bear driving range in Wayne, and would give 12, 15 lessons a day. Obviously, they were half hours.
Sure.
It was a grind. It was definitely a grind. And you learn a lot about yourself when you're standing up on there and watch someone top it for a half an hour.
I don't think enough people really understand what the life of a club pro is really like. They assume you're just hitting balls all the time, hobnobbing with the members, maybe taking them out for a quick 9, having a couple beers. It's not really like that, is it?
You made some pretty good money, but when you realize that someone came in, and I think back then I was charging maybe $45 a half hour. So for $45, I had a half hour, and this person expected me to make them better as a person when they left. And it took a little while, maybe the first 1,000 lessons I didn't understand. And then I finally was like, wait a minute. They're looking for personality. They want to have a good time and come out of this with something. They're not necessarily going to knock 3 shots off their game. So you had to really learn sales because you were selling yourself. You didn't have a product.
Sure.
Essentially, you were up on that lesson tee selling yourself. And I got a little burnt out because all I did was teach. The more you teach, typically the worse your game gets. So it was a little frustrating on that end. So I decided to get back into the green grass world.
And explain just for our listeners, what do you mean by green grass? You mentioned that earlier, so explain what green grass is.
All right. So when you work at a driving range up here and there's snow, they want this thing operating year round. So essentially it's AstroTurf now. Back then it was mats on top of cement or tar.
Okay.
Real good for your elbows.
Yeah, not so much.
So that was a synthetic golf course, essentially, that you were hitting off of a mat. Then when you go to a country club, you have what's known as green grass. So they're not hitting off of, a mat on tar. They're actually hitting off of real grass. So decided to take a job as an assistant back at a green grass club, which was North Jersey Country Club in Wayne. And met some awesome people, life-changing people. And when you work at a country club as an assistant, you really learn the dynamics of a country club and about people, how successful people become that they can spend Wednesday at noon having a Caesar salad and going to tee it up in the afternoon.
Sure.
Or Saturday, Sunday, these guys. And I was like, wow, this is pretty interesting. So I always had this vision in my head. You got to figure out a way to design a business plan that circles around golf. In the meantime, I was just an assistant. I had an awesome teaching ability, good playing record, won a couple assistant events. And I became the go-to guy for all the members.
So you mentioned all these lessons. Give me a story of just a nightmare lesson. There had to have been I'm sure there were tons, but give me an example of just a nightmare lesson.
So, totally not planned. This is great. So I had a guy who had taken lessons from everyone at the driving range. And they were like, dude, there's no way you can help this guy. He has been shanking for 30 years. He will never not shank. Now, when you're at a public driving range, the stalls were just like a piece of plywood, and they were only about 6 feet apart. So, you could hit someone in your backswing. But, when you're teaching someone, you have to get between where they're hitting and that piece of plywood.
Sure.
You're trying to look head on and kind of see their impact position, their setup, blah, blah, blah. The first swing he makes, I think he was hitting like a half wedge. The ball went between my legs. Picture, I'm standing face on. It went exactly sideways between my legs, hit the plywood, and rolled right back on the mat. And I was like, wow, that's impressive. So now I decide, you know what? We're going to take a different approach here. So I start from, the down the line angle and start watching him from there, getting to soften his arms. He's actually making contact. I think it was a lot of fairway woods we were hitting because it's really hard to hit one off the neck with that. So sure enough, I built my confidence up and I get back in there. Face on, looking at him eye to eye, and he hits one that comes off the club and hit me in the shin so hard. And all I could say was, you so deserve this. He felt terrible. He locked up because I was in front of him, and he hit the ball, and it went, it literally went directly sideways, hit me right in the inside of my right shin. I hobbled back, and I don't think I stood back in there for probably a month or two because it hurt. So that was quite interesting.
All right, so that one's pretty bad. It sounds to me that you spent your time as an assistant, obviously in your early 20s, really enjoyed that part of your life, but I think it sounds like you really kind of saw yourself doing more, and like you said, you kind of got burnt out on it. Now, you said you were an assistant at North Jersey, so this was not your first experience with North Jersey, was it?
Our high school golf team had the luxury of utilizing the front nine there for one of our conferences. So that was actually our home course in high school. So it was a little coming home party when I came back and was the assistant, because it was a lot of people that I had known from caddying. And I did that, I guess, probably like 4 years. And my father-in-law, actually, and a group of guys, Vinny Arciero, Mike Peasy, they used to just watch me. Kid, they used to call me kid, what are you going to do? Like, this is only going to take you so far. So I said, I don't know. And, one mentioned, no, maybe you should go day trade or work on Wall Street. That was the hot thing back then.
Sure.
And then Vinny, my father-in-law, said, you should think about the mortgage business. I'm like, I rent. I was like, I don't even own a home. He's like, well, you could always try it for the winter. If you don't like it, you go back and work at the club. So with that, I got into the mortgage business. The owner of the mortgage company was a big golfer. He played in a bunch of different pro-ams as the amateur. We sponsored a lot of golf events. So golf was a thing, and took it from there. At that point, I left golf. I didn't play, really focused on, I wanted to succeed in this mortgage business. I wanted to learn what it was about. Started to play golf a little bit, was getting invited by vendors. So it was a struggle for a little bit because you couldn't hit the shots you used to be able to hit.
Right.
But, you always have a couple beers and a laugh. So it was fine. And then started to get into it a little bit more and ended up joining North Jersey as a House and Sport member. And my big curiosity was I always wanted to know what it was like to pay to play golf. Because typically when you're in college playing or you're the son of a golf pro or an assistant golf pro, you don't want to be seen on the first hole because you're freebie. So all you do is hurry up, let's get in the cart, let's get the heck out of here, let's get to the first green, and we'll figure out a game. We'll figure everything out. Just get out of here. So I always had that curiosity, like, what's it like to actually, pay and go use a locker room and hit balls and then, if you want to sit down on the first tee, you can sit down and have a sandwich, whatever. I just wanted to see what that was like. It was always that curiosity. It was interesting.
That's actually very interesting that you mentioned that. So you basically grew up as the son of a head pro. You play college golf. You're caddying at this club. You work your way up. You're an assistant pro, and you finally get to the part of your life where you're a member. Whatever the social member, full member, whatever your status is. But you finally get to the point in your, I'm assuming it's early 30s. Where you're a full member at a club, and then you actually feel comfortable at a golf course.
Well, you don't necessarily yet, because now it's, I'm one of these, social trial member type of thing. I kind of, my old boss, the head pro, was still the head pro. So, like, I go in the men's grill, like, my first instinct is go sit with the pro.
Sure.
And then if the pro's not there, now I'm sitting with people. And are they looking at me like I'm still the kid from the bag room? Or, am I a social member? They thought maybe I had more influence with the staff, so they would complain about the staff. So I never really felt like the first summer I was there, I didn't know where I fit in. So I kind of, stepped back with that. But it got my juices going. So I started to play in some, one-day member guests, see some other clubs. Got my amateur status back, so now I have a handicap. I'm like, this is cool. I'm, seeing everything from the other side.
Yeah.
And I know what goes into it because I was, did every job possible on the other side, So I decided it was time and anteed up and became a full family member, whatever you want to call it, and decided I'm now going to take my referral partners out to play golf. And I'm going to build relationships on the golf course because, one, we don't have a cell phone. There's no cell phone policy, so I got your attention for 4 or 5 hours. In my sleep, I can still hit the ball forward. So the whole time, they're in a weak position because they're constantly looking for their ball.
Yep.
So, after you land a couple accounts with it, you're like, wait a minute. I have to win a PGA Tour event. back then to make what you could make in the mortgage business playing golf. And I'm like, so what? My score doesn't count anymore. Big deal. But there was some sort of gratification knowing that you paid to play. You stand on that first tee, you're like, wow, this is it. Like, I worked my entire life on the other side. And now it's like, all right, just sit back, take this in, kind of enjoy it.
So when you brought clients or potential clients out to the club and hosted them, were you thinking about putting on a show as far as hitting great shots, making birdies, or?
The fact that I had so much love from the club, when I went up there with a client, they immediately were like, oh my God, this kid's special, because I knew everyone, whether it was I shined their shoes or I gave them a dozen golf balls, I gave them a lesson. Everyone knew me. So that was more of the thing that I wanted, the client to see that good side of me, the family side that everyone kind of clung to. I mean, listen, Ben, at our level of golf, every single 9 holes you play, you're going to hit a shot that everyone's going to be like, wow. I mean, it is what it is. Yep. You might not think it's that good, but immediately everyone's eyes are like, holy cow. And when you go from playing at Southern Hills with all these people watching you in the NAIA National Championship to team it up, with 3 guys that aren't going to break 100, it's really not that big of a deal.
Sure. So you basically just had the home court advantage, just going to North.
Totally.
So for a guy that's listening to this episode that has a that's going to go play in some sort of a member guest or a scramble or some sort of an outing, and he's not the A player, what's your advice to someone in that kind of a situation? How can they feel more comfortable? What should they do?
Go get a tennis racket.
All right. So again,
no, seriously, that's such a good question, because especially when I first left the business, everyone hears the word golf pro and they're like, can you tell me what I'm doing wrong? Listen, we're all paying. No one cares what you're doing wrong. So if you feel like you're going to be the weak link in the group, first thing you do on the putting green is introduce yourself and say, listen, I'm not an avid golfer. I'll tell you one thing. We're going to have a great time today. I'm going to get beers, whatever you want. We're going to have a good time. Then make sure not to bother the A player. Quit saying, what are you hitting? Why are you hitting? What are you going to do? They don't care about what you want to know from them. They want to play their own game. They if you're the worst person, you have a nervous habit of trying to overdo it with the best person. So my big thing is leave that guy. Let the best person be who he is. Talk to him about the birds. Anything other than golf, because right now it feels like you're just asking for his time, and he's not being paid for this.
Gotcha.
So that's my big pet peeve when you get up and hit one, I don't know, 310 off the first hole, and they're like, can you watch me and tell me what No, absolutely not. I don't even want to look at you. And now I probably don't want to talk to you anymore. So, be fun. It's like, don't ask for someone's time. It's just like everything else in the world, at work. Don't ask for someone's time unless you're paying for it.
Gotcha. So you get your amateur status back. Was there an event that you played in that really stuck out, that gave you the itch to get back into the game and devote some time to it?
In 2010, my high school teammate, Anthony Scalva, who had, gone down to Palm Beach, was back. He was an amateur. We played in the 3-day invitational tournament at North Jersey. And we blew through the championship flight. And we win the invitational, which is pretty cool event. It's a name on a board. And it was really nice to have basically, my best friend playing with me, also caddying for me, because, he's talking into shots that you might not want to hit or weren't so comfortable with. And it was really cool. That was like a big grind point.
Sure.
And it was amazing, for a year, everyone called me champ. And all of a sudden, that gets your competitive juices going. So I ended up meeting a gentleman by the name of Matt Wirtz, who ends up being one of my vendors now. He's probably about a 3 or 4 handicap member at a couple country clubs. One is Baltusrol. So he and I hit it off at a whiskey tasting. We play some golf. He can play. I can play. We end up playing a couple of member guests by him, a couple by me. We end up taking a trip to the Mid-Ocean Country Club with a group of clients doing business on the golf course. And I was like, wow, this is awesome. He gets it. Then we had a year where we won the gross division in 6 of the 8 one-day member guests at Baltusrol.
Oh, God. All right, so
now, when you're playing at Baltusrol, it's gross. There's no Callaway or net. It's gross.
Straight up.
So
straight up, okay.
All the assistants, the head pro, everyone knows my name from announcing it every single month in the one day. So now, you're getting that going. So before I decided, I would go tee it up for 18 by myself, one of the members at Baltusrol told Matt, hey, you guys should try to get an invite to the Couching Lion up in Vermont. It's a scratch event, 2-man, better ball, 72 teams go out and try to qualify, and then you get seeded and flighted based on what you gross shoot. He said, I have a house up there. You guys go stay at my house. So he and I go up, and we qualify in the 2 seed. We're in the championship flight. Now, it's interesting. So it's a week-long event. So you go, you have your gross you play a practice round, then your qualifier. The course was set up, I don't know, like 7,200 yards. Greens were rolling at like 14 in September. It's awesome. We start playing in these matches, and I'm looking. I'm like, wow. Former mini tour guy, a former senior tour player, caddy master, club champions, guys I've seen their names in the U.S. AMs and U.S. Mid-Ams. I'm like, we got some interesting people in this flight. So we make our way through. We get to the finals, and probably one of the best rounds I ever hit it. I think in the finals, I made 7 birdies.
Jeez.
And we ended up losing, one down on 18. And we played awesome. And that really got it was funny because it really slowed down the game for me, got focused back, and immediately I'm carrying a towel, and I felt this is just like college or high school golf, except now I have a caddy, but you get in that same zone really quick. So that was like another real big turning point for me to see that I definitely had the game to go back and play with these guys that were more recently out of, mini tours and stuff like that. So that was pretty cool. And we always bust chops about it. Second place was like a piece of slate that I had buried in my garden over here.
That's at least getting like a bucket of balls or like a head cover or something. So that was 2010. Obviously, you have a good hold on the member guest circuit up there in Jersey. What are your aspirations right now? Are you looking at potentially trying to qualify and play in some U.S. Mid-Ams or other invitationals? What are you working towards now?
I have such a respect and love for the game. I just like playing. I could care less if it's a one-day event, if it's just for fun, if it's a tournament or not. That doesn't really get me. I do once in a while get the competitive drive. So, my goal is probably in the next 4 or 5 years to build myself up in business so that I can play a little bit more, practice a little bit more. Probably, when I get into my middle 40s, maybe start doing some state events, some pre-senior events, maybe even, try a U.S. Mid-Am or something like that. Right now I'm content. I play in these, I forget what you guys call them, but the 3-day member guests, which my wife caps me at 5. I can't play more than 5 a year.
Okay.
But
that still sounds pretty good.
It's great. It's, 5 9-hole matches. no real shots. Championship play, you're always playing from the tips. Baltusrol was last year, 3 weeks before the PGA, so they played us on the lower. They had the stands up. You have all this action, and it's all good golfers. Typically, I'm running into guys from Loyola, Georgetown, Lehigh, guys they played college golf against. So it's cool to see us all still have the respect and love for the game, even though we've all gone our own way and done what we've done and worked to become successful. But we all come back, and all of a sudden, we're telling stories about, playing at the Rowell or playing at Lansdowne or Georgetown or Betidaconk up in New Jersey, and, really kind of going back to college and then just grinding out. And they're nice because, let's face it, when you're not practicing a lot, all of a sudden you play a gross practice round and then 5 9-hole matches, all of a sudden you're starting to feel it.
Sure.
You roll some putts in, all of a sudden it's, wow, look at this. I just shot under par.
So now, and like this is kind of typical of, kind of like the these mid-amateur events, these, member invitations, member guest invitations. So this is kind of typical of what like a cocktail circuit is, where you get invited to these exclusive clubs. And, a lot of people listening right now maybe are playing, just their regular muni tracks or their normal, member guest country club games. But what's it like? I mean, just give me an example of what it's like to go and play in one of these events at Baltusrol or at Winged Foot or at other these Northeast, really traditional old school clubs. I mean, that's not something that it's easy to get invited to, or, much less get an opportunity to play in. What's that like?
To me, it's more impressive because all you got to do is go to the MGA and apply for a Met Open and go qualify it, whatever course they put you on. You go get a handicap card and whatever, you shoot with your buddies 1 or 2 under and you have a low handicap, you can get in.
Sure.
When you get invited to these, you're sitting with CEOs and CFOs of Fortune 500 companies. So you're with the real deal. And then they're the real deal in life, but you also have to now compete with them. So I find it amazing. And a lot of the clubs up here do mostly gross, believe it or not. They don't, when you get to the elite places, the Pine Valleys, the Baltusrols, the Marions, they don't want
to mess around with handicap nonsense.
They got 1 or 2 net winners. They're announcing the real golfers in the room.
Yeah.
So it's pretty special when you get your name announced in that, that kind of venue. And for me, obviously, having the love for the game and growing up, doing everything with golf, when you play in these, the course is in the tip-top shape because they're showcasing it. So when you go tee it up at Pine Valley or Baltusrol, and they got that place mint for the daily event, you're not going to find anything better. And you know what's fun? You can go shoot 80 and make 4 birdies and you're a hero. That's what I love. Nice. But no, you're out there. You're trying your best. You do want to, try to put up a good number, but you get in awe with what your surrounding is at that moment.
Sure. So
taking me to golf clubs I never thought I would have ever seen.
Oh, I can only imagine what that must be like. We hit on the term cocktail circuit, and in our previous conversations getting ready for this episode, you mentioned something about transfusions, and no, we're not talking about any sort of medical issue that you're having, any sort of...
You might need one if you have too many.
Yes, but we're not talking about any sort of a plasma or platelet abnormality that you may have. I really need to try one. Please explain what a transfusion is. Explain how it leads into golfing greatness.
It's the country club drink of choice up here.
Okay, and being a South Florida guy, I am not familiar with this.
Pine Valley has the turtle soup. Everyone's got their little thing. Up in North Jersey, we have the Transfusion. Now, You need to be at a country club close to the inner city or New York City, some type of major city to find it, because it's vodka, ginger ale, and grape juice. But it's not any particular, it's a particular type of grape juice. Not any grape juice will do. It has to be Welch's. You need the old school Welch's for a true transfusion.
Okay.
And your first experience, you suck the first one down. You're like, that was sweet. That was good. By the time you have your fourth, you are crawling to the golf cart. They really can make for an interesting afternoon.
Give me one of the most disturbing scenes you've experienced on the golf course due to transfusions. Wait a minute. Do you have one, or are you just?
I can immediately think of one.
All right, let me step away from the microphone. Go ahead.
I want to try to keep this PG and not get him in trouble too much. Michael is a public course guy. Michael probably plays 5-6 times a year. Michael comes up as my guest. Michael thinks I'm just going to have a lot of beers and a good time. So as soon as we get there, he runs to the halfway house. He's like, give me 4 beers. Comes back to the car. I'm like, hey, Mike, listen, I appreciate it, but I don't really spend all day drinking beers out here. He's like, oh, I'll drink. I'm like, all right, cool. I'm going to go over inside and get a transfusion. Oh, what's that? Well, it's a drink of choice up here. So Michael says, can you get me one too? I'm like, what are you going to do with those 4 beers? You're going to give them back? So he said, yeah, I'll talk to Lee in the halfway house. I'm like, okay. He runs back to the halfway house. I get a couple transfusions. At North Jersey, it's pretty cool because you can hit the halfway house quite a few times. Hole 1, 2, 3, come right back to the house. After 9, back, like you hit this thing enough. So
sounds like a brilliant routing by North Jersey, by the way.
Genius. Walter Travis was genius on that. So Michael probably has half a dozen. And
wait a minute, half a dozen beers or half a dozen transfusions?
Half a dozen transfusions.
Oh,
He's definitely, the shirt's starting to come out. You can tell Michael hasn't been at a country club very long. So we go upstairs to the locker room. Said, why don't you guys go shower up, get changed. I'll go set us up downstairs, at the table for dinner. I get a call from the locker man. Hey, you might want to come up. Your guest's getting a little wild. I come back upstairs to the locker room to see my guest naked, running through the bathroom and launching himself into the jacuzzi.
Oh, no.
Kids, be careful. Transfusions are an adult drink.
Okay. so he was
literally getting in a 3-point stance, running and launching into the jacuzzi. And yes, North Jersey does have a jacuzzi.
Well, it used
in
to.
The locker room.
All right. Well, whoever Michael is, please get Michael a helmet and some floaties next time you take him out for a round of golf.
He definitely needs floaties.
All right. So good to know. 6 transfusions equals 2.5 gainer into the hot tub. All right. Well, you didn't disappoint with that story.
And now, time for a quick bucket.
All right, Spice, you've lasted this long. We are going to get you out of here with our little segment here at the end called the Quick Bucket. Just some random questions. Just want to see what your answers will be. And the first one, Jack Nicklaus victory in the 1986 Masters at the age of 46, or Tiger Woods' 5th green jacket? Which would be the more substantial victory?
Tiger's 5th jacket, hands down.
Okay. Any particular reason?
Because he took the game to a level that's never seen before. And especially with what he's going through now, for him if he came back and won another Masters, it would be incredible.
Okay, here's another question. give me one thing that would make the game of golf better for the average player.
I think 14 holes, golf hole the size of a manhole cover. You play in 2.5 hours. I mean, think about that. You have 40, 50-yard shots. You're trying to hole it. How cool would that be? And how many times by the time you get to 14, you're like, I'm done.
Yep.
I can't take these guys anymore. I'm done. I surrender.
So a 14-hole golf course with holes the size of manhole covers.
That would be tremendous.
That does sound fun. Spice, thanks so much for being a guest on the Back of the Range.
Next time, though, we'll get into some of your dark stories.
Oh, dear God, no. Next time we have to do this at Baltusrol over some transfusions.
We can do that.
And that was Willie Spicer. Thank you to him for being a guest here at the Back of the Range. So if you see him rolling up in a golf cart and he has some sort of a purple-colored drink in his hand, just don't play him for too much money. Thanks so much for listening this week. Again, follow us on Instagram, subscribe in Apple Podcasts, leave some reviews, let me know how things are going. And if you know someone that wants to be on the show, shoot me an email, ben@thebackoftherange.com. Thanks. I'll see you next week.